Grey Knights are bringing Kaldor Drago and a Librarian with the Sigil of Exigence and a Librarian with Inescapable Wrath, all three leading a 5-man squad of Terminators with a Narthesium, 2 5-man strike squads, 2 Nemesis Dreadknights with Great Hammers, and finally a Librarian, Captain Skern, and a Kaladesh Assassin all flying solo. World Leaders are bringing a 10-man squad of Berserkers led by a Master of Executions with a Berserker Glaive, 2 Chaos Spawn, 2 3-man squads of Exalted 8-bound, and 1 3-man squad of regular 8-bound, 1 unit of Jackals, Lord Invocatus and a Lord on a Juggernaut, Khorne, Lord of Skulls, and Angron. Deployment is Crucible of Battle. Primary mission is Terraform, and mission rule is Stalwarts. Grey Knights win the die roll and go first. World Leaders roll their blood dice and score advance in charge and +2 movement. Grey Knights, because of this, have chosen not to make any forward scout moves to avoid getting charged turn 1. Invocatus will give the Berserker squad scout, and they'll simply move forward a couple of inches to stay within cover, leaving everyone else in place. Secondaries for the turn are Cleanse and Marked for Death. Marked for Death targets are Chaos Spawn, Lord of Skulls, and Angron. Command phase for the Grey Knights, they will sticky their home objective thanks to the strike squad. Movement phase, 1 NDK is going to move on the center objective and perform the Cleanse action, wanting to only expose 1 unit that they could potentially mist away from the massive charge that is coming next turn. Second NDK does not have enough movement to reach that objective to cleanse, so they are instead going to move back a wee bit to make sure they are out of range of Angron. The Librarian squad is going to scooch up 5 inches to prep for a charge on the Chaos Spawn next turn. The second Librarian squad is going to also advance back behind the building to keep them safe from an Angron charge as well. After some careful consideration, the strike squad also feels like they might be in range and is going to go ahead and move back. Brother Captain Stern does have enough movement to get within range as well as line of sight on the Chaos Spawn to take some pop shots at. Shooting phase, the NDK in the center objective is going to cleanse. Stern fires into the Chaos Spawn, failing to score a wound. That is going to end turn 1 for the Grey Knights, scoring 2 points on cleanse and discarding Marked for Death for a CP. Round 1 for the World Leaders. Secondaries for the turn are Extend Battle Lines and Behind Enemy Lines, both potentially doable. Command phase, the Jackals sticky the home objective. Instead of attempting a 9-inch charge, Chaos Spawn have chosen to move onto the objective and seize that control, remaining outside the building for cover. Exalted 8-bound move a whopping 16 inches, giving them an 8-inch charge against the Librarian squad and a 9-inch charge on the Nemesis Dreadknight. Dreadknight is going to hold fast, potentially move blocking Angron. 14 inches of movement gives enough for the regular 8-bound squad to make it into the building and on the objective. And so the Lord of Skulls is going to move its full 10 inches and get on the center objective. Grey Knights will spend a CP to mist away the NDK. Master of Executions and the Berserkers get a sweet 6 on their advance, putting them in the oh so crucial within 6 inches of the 8-bound so they can heroic intervene should they feel the need. Angron with his massive movement is going to get behind enemy lines, but unfortunately has 2 12-inch charges, so it's not looking great for some slaughter this turn. Lord on Juggernaut is going to do some backfield screening. Jackals are going to remain in place, and Lord Invocatus is going to adjust to also perform some screening with the Berserkers and Lord of Skulls. Skipping through the shooting phase as there are no targets, Angron chooses +1 to charging for an 11 into the Terminators and unfortunately fails the charge. The Exalted 8-bound make it into the Terminator squad with an 8. 8-bound managed to take down 4 Terminators, leaving just the Librarian and Narthesium, and those 2 managed to take down a single 8-bound. That's going to end the turn for the World Leaders, scoring 5 points for Extend Battle Lines and 4 points for Behind Enemy Lines, thanks to the 8-bound making the charge. End of the turn, Grey Knights are going to pick up a Strike Squad, the Lone Librarian, and the second Strike Squad. World Leaders roll 6 up, feel no pain, and sustain hits in combat. Top of round 2, both players go up to 3 CP. Secondaries for the turn are Area Denial and Bring It Down. Grey Knights control 1 objective marker and score 5 points on primary. Alright, the CM is going to resurrect the Terminator. And movement, Stern is going to move to make the charge unfailable and also help, as well as the Calidus Assassin, since she has nothing better to do at the moment. Grey Knights have decided to try to score Bring It Down on Angron, and so reflect that with the NDK moving as close as possible. Librarian squad is going to pop out of the building to be able to blast Angron. Not wanting to expose itself just yet, the second NDK comes back behind the Librarian to get additional shots on Angron. Librarian thought that was a good idea and is going to come down as well. And both strike squads vamp in this back corner, hoping to blast the 8-bound off the objective. One Vortex of Doom brings Angron down to 13. The other brings a Librarian down to 1. Rest of the shooting manages to only plink off 4 more wounds on Angron. Both strike squads fire into the 8-bound, scoring 2 wounds. Charges for the Grey Knights. Both strike squads fail into the 8-bound. Both Terminators and the NDK make it into Angron. Both Calidus Assassin and Stern make it into combat with the 8-bound. NDK manages to deal 5 wounds to Angron, but unfortunately that does leave him alive. So the World Eaters are going to spend 2 CP to interrupt, and Angron will swing into the Grey Knight Terminators that have not attacked yet. Angron manages to wipe the entire squad of Terminators, leaving only the Librarian that is unable to score another wound on Angron. Stern and the Assassin leave an 8-bound at 1 wound remaining. Poor rolling on the Terminator's part takes out the Terminator squad, though the crackback does hurt and leaves 1 8-bound alive with 1 remaining. That is going to end the turn for the Grey Knights, discarding Area Denial for a CP and failing to score Bring It Down. Secondaries for the turn are Marked for Death and Sabotage. Grey Knights are selecting the NDK, the Solo Librarian, and Captain Stern as the Marked for Death targets. World Leaders are going to score 10 points for controlling 2 objective markers. Movement for the World Leaders. Lord of Skulls is going to cover the center objective and begin to burn it. Lord on Juggernaut is going to position themselves to make an unfailable charge against the strike squad. Regular 8-bound are going to move to the other side of the wall to be out of range from the strike squad and begin to burn the objective. Lord Invocatus is going to move his 12 to attempt to help his fellow Juggernaut rider. Not trusting an 8-inch charge, the Berserkers are going to position themselves on the objective, taking over for the spawn, and conveniently being inside the building, being able to start the sabotage action. Chaos Spawn are going to move to give themselves a 7-inch charge, potentially locking down the Librarian. Invocatus and the Lord on Juggernaut fire into the strike squad with no joy. Lord of Skulls fires into the NDK, but cannot fire the Demigore cannon as it has blast, and the NDK's 4-up invul saves it from taking any damage from the Skull Hurler. Lord Juggernaut into the strike squad is in. Lord Invocatus fails his 8-inch charge. Chaos Spawn fail their 7-inch charge, and World Leaders decide to hold on to the CP so they're able to potentially interrupt with Angron and keep him alive. Juggernaut's Bloody Stampede deals 3 mortal wounds, killing a knight and leaving another at 1 wound. Grey Knights are going to spend 1 CP on True Silver Armor. Juggernaut fails to score another wound. Grey Knights are going to activate the NDK into Angron. Unfortunately, it was not needed as the NDK only scored 1 hit and Angron saved it on his invul. World Leaders activate the Exalted 8-bound, surrounded in combat, and it takes down the Librarian. Librarian manages to knock off 1 wound off of Angron. Angron brings the NDK down to 9 wounds remaining, but does scoop up the Librarian. Strike Squad brings the Lord on Juggernaut down to 2 wounds remaining. Calidus Assassin picks up the last 8-bound. Both strike squads fight back, killing the Lord on Juggernaut. That's going to end the turn for the World Eaters, holding on to sabotage the score at the end of the Grey Knight's turn and discarding Marked for Death for a CP. At the end of the turn, Grey Knights will pick up Captain Stern, Calidus Assassin, and the 4-man strike squad. Top of round 3, World Eaters roll their blessings and score Feel No Pain and advance in charge. Grey Knights start round 3 by drawing Call the Horde, which they cannot score and thus are able to redraw it for free, drawing Engage on all fronts and holding on to bring it down from last turn. They score 5 points for holding 1 objective. Librarian is going to position itself to score Engage on all fronts, but still be within range of Vortex of Dooming Angron. NDK could shoot at either the Berserkers or the Chaos Spawn, but instead going to play it safe and position itself to not only shoot at Angron, but also Lord of Skulls if needed. Strike Squad is going to move closer to the 8-bound to hopefully interrupt the burning. Calidus Assassin will drop in behind enemy lines. Captain Stern will drop in to shoot at the 8-bound, and Drago will arrive in with his squad from the warp. Not having a really strong position for them, the strike squad comes back in behind their own deployment zone. At the end of the Grey Knight movement phase, World Eaters are going to spend 1 CP to rapid ingress the Exalted 8-bound, putting them behind cover from the NDKs. Shooting for the Grey Knights starts off with the Librarian blowing himself up with Vortex of Doom. Both NDKs unload into Angron and fail to score a single wound. Drago's squad and Stern fire into the Exalted 8-bound, managing to kill 1 and leaving another at 1 wound remaining. Strike squad into the regular 8-bound make it with a 9. Drago into the regular 8-bound fail the first one with a 3. CP re-roll it into a 6, making the charge. World Eaters spend a CP to heroically intervene with Lord Invocatus, but unfortunately he fails the charge. The second Dread Knight makes the charge into Angron. Even through invul saves and Feel No Pains, the NDK manages to do just enough to finally slay Angron, scoring them Bring It Down. World Eaters spend 2 CP to interrupt, and due to the Narthasium, the 8-bound fight into the strike squad, killing 4 of them. But thanks to the demon keyword, Drago manages to mop the floor with both of them, killing them by himself. That is going to end the turn for the Grey Knights, scoring 4 points on Bring It Down and 2 points for Engage on all fronts since they lost the Librarian. World Eaters draw Assassination and Containment as their secondaries. They will score 10 points for controlling 2 objectives and an additional 5 points for burning the center objective thanks to the Lord of Skulls. They will also score the full 6 points on Sabotage because the building is in their opponent's deployment zone. On to movement, 8-bound are going to move first with a solid advance of 3, putting them within striking distance of both NDKs. Seeing the writing on the wall, the Grey Knights are going to spend 1 CP to Mist of Deimos, the NDK at full health. In attempts to maximize their firepower, the Lord of Skulls is going to reverse to get a solid charge and shooting on Drago's squad. With a full 9 inches of movement, the Berserkers are going to get within charging distance of the NDK. Chaos Spawn are going to move back into the building and begin to take the burn action. Lord Invocatus goes after the Calidus Assassin. Jackals are going to stay on the home objective, still protecting it from an easy charge from the Grey Knights. Lord Invocatus fires into Calidus Assassin, knocking off 2 wounds. Lord of Skulls fires its Demigore cannon into the Terminators and its Skull Hurler into Captain Stern. Terminators shrug it off, but Captain Stern does go down. At the end of the shooting phase, Captain Stern rolls on a 2-up and is resurrected. Charges Invocatus into the Calidus Assassin. Lord of Skull makes it into Drago's squad and onto the objective. Exalted 8-bound make it into the NDK, and the Master of Executions and Berserker squad fail the charge. Calidus Assassin fights first, bringing Lord Invocatus down to 4 wounds remaining. Exalted 8-bound managed to leave the NDK at 1 wound remaining. Grey Knights are going to spend 2 CP to interrupt with Kaldor Drago squad, bringing the Lord of Skulls down to 20 wounds. Lord of Skulls fights back, taking down 2 Terminators. NDK manages to kill one 8-bound and leave another one at 1 wound remaining. As expected, Lord Invocatus scoops up the Calidus Assassin. That's going to end the turn for the World Eaters, scoring 5 points for Assassination and discarding Containment for a CP. At the end of the turn, Grey Knights are going to pick up Captain Stern, the remaining Strike Squad, and the Strike Squad that remained hidden last turn. At the top of the round, World Leaders make their Blood God rolls and manage to score 2 6s. Thanks to the re-roll from the Jackals, they get a 5, which means that the Lord of Skulls is able to move 1 die up or down by 1 because it did count as killing Captain Stern last turn, turning that 5 into a 6 for a triple 6, bringing back Angron. I won't lie, this is the first time this has happened to me, so I'm not sure if I still get to count those 6s towards my blood dice or not. Let me know in the comments down below. So World Leaders take sustain hits 1 and 6 up feel no pain. Grey Knights are a little too depleted to go for War of Attrition, so they have chosen to go for Command Insertion. Secondaries for the turn are Sabotage and Extend Battle Lines. Thanks to the Narthecium, Drago squad will get back a Terminator. This will out-OC the Lord of Skulls, scoring them 10 points for owning 2 objectives. NDK fails its Battle Shock test, remaining in place thanks to the Exalted 8-bound ability. Fall back with Drago's squad, so he is able to bamf out if he needs to back into the building away from the Lord of Skulls. Grey Knights will spend 1 CP for Prognostic Arrival to drop in the Grey Knight to potentially clear out the home objective. The Lone Strike Squad is going to drop down as far away from all the World Leaders as they can to begin the Sabotage action. The larger Strike Squad is going to drop in 9 inches away from Lord Invocatus, not having room to take out the Jackals, but potentially shooting here, and Captain Stern will join them. Grey Knights will spend 1 CP to throw grenades on Lord Invocatus, scoring 4 mortals, but a feel no pain makes it 3, leaving Invocatus at 1 wound remaining. Captain Stern and the Strike Squad fire their bolters into Invocatus, managing to plink off the last wound and taking him down. Nemesis Dread Knight fires into combat hoping to save itself, and it does, taking down both remaining 8-bound. World Leaders are going to spend a CP for Rapid Ingress on Angron, bringing him in behind enemy lines near their home objective. NDK picks up 4 Jackals in shooting. That's going to end the turn for the Grey Knights. They're going to hold on to Sabotage, but with the writing on the wall, they are going to pitch Extend Battle Lines for a CP. Secondaries for the turn are Establish Locus and Bring It Down. World Leaders are going to start the turn by scoring 10 points for owning 2 objectives and additional 5 points for burning 1 in No Man's Land. World Leaders are going to start the movement phase by backing up the Lord of Skulls so he gets eyes on Drago squad. Considering their secret mission, Grey Knights are going to spend a CP to Mist of Deimos out the Terminators. Aaron is going to move himself over so he can steal the home objective from the Grey Knight and attack the Nemesis Dread Knight should he need to, but he will start the burn action. Mo and the Berserkers are going to keep trucking along in the middle of No Man's Land, going after the long bomb charge of the solo Strike Squad. And in the same back and forth fashion, the Chaos Spawn are going to move back just a scotch to be able to deploy Locust in the enemy deployment zone. The Jackals thought about locking up the NDK in combat, but decided they're better off just blocking their objective from a 3-inch deep strike. The Lord of Skulls fires everything it has into the NDK and blasts it off the planet. The Berserkers fail their first charge into the Strike Squad, so they CP re-roll that and fail the second one, unfortunately. That's going to end the turn for the World Eaters, scoring 4 points on Established Locus and 2 points for Bring It Down. At the end of the turn, Grey Knights are going to pick up Captain Stern and the remaining Strike Squad. Secondaries for the Grey Knights are Overwhelming Force and Containment. They'll score 0 points on primary, but will get the full 6 points for Sabotage. Movement for the Grey Knights. The NDK moves in for the kill. Solo Strike will move back to score Containment. Captain Stern will land in this corner for Containment. Strike squad will bamf in this far corner for containment. Drago and his goon squad will arrive at full strength 9 inches away, hoping to make the charge. No shooting from the Grey Knights because they have blood surges on one side and they need as many bodies on the objective as possible to make the charge. For charges, the NDK manages to make it into the Jackals, but unfortunately even with a CP reroll, Kaldor Drago squad fails to make their 9-inch charge onto the objective. Between the Great Hammer and the Tank Shock, the NDK manages to wipe the Jackal squad off the objective, scoring them overwhelming force as well as stealing the objective. They'll end the turn for the Grey Knights, failing to score their secret mission but scoring 3 points for overwhelming force and the full 6 points for containment. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that will not be enough to secure the lead from the World Eaters, making the World Eaters our victors today with a final score of 65-43. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, please do consider dropping a sub, as we really would appreciate it. But until next time, as always, happy gaming.